Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Brother, Can You Spare a Dollar for the fabulous Furry Freak Brothers. I guess the first edition of this was Brother, Can You Spare 75 cents? Because that was the original first printing cover price. And obviously this is a later printing because the real price is $2. But I guess they got tired of changing this logo every time there was a new printing. I believe the last printing was like $3.95 cover price. But I think it still says, can you spare a dollar? This is an interesting issue in many ways. So this came out in 1975. At this point, Gilbert Shelton had run out of all the strips to reprint. The Freak Brothers strips to reprint from the underground newspapers that were syndicated. I guess he stopped doing that a few years earlier, or I don't even know when. But all those strips have been reprinted in the first 3 issues, and now he's going to continue on, just making new material for each issue. And he recruited Dave Sheridan to help him out, the great underground cartoonist of Mother Oates fame, Tales from the Leather Nun. So from now on, Gilbert Shelton, great cartoonist, but now it's going to be extra nice cartooning because Dave Sheridan's going to lend a patina of really nice illustrative line work and great inking. I couldn't find out anywhere exactly how they broke down their art. I don't know if Gilbert Shelton just did loose layouts and Dave Sheridan did all the rest, or if he just inked Gilbert Shelton's tight pencils. I don't know. But it looks fucking nice. It looks very good. Starting with this cover, we can already see David Sheridan's influence here. Just amazing shading and the amount of detail. Nice stuff. Inside front cover featuring Fat Freddy's cat. Kind of a cute little one-pager. And this is what I've been waiting for. I know I've been talking about this a lot every time we look at the Freak Brothers. But, I like the one-page gag strips. They're fun. Beautifully drawn. Fun little strips. But Gilbert Shelton really shines when he tells long-form stories. He's just a really good yarn spinner and storyteller. And he's just got a knack for it. And this issue, it's like we get a 24-page epic, The Seventh Voyage of the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers, A Mexican Odyssey. I find it curious, on all the pages and all the strips, the copyright is Shelton and Sheridan, which is amazing to me that, Gilbert Shelton was basically hiring Dave Sheridan. He could have totally done work for hire, just like, Mike Mignola, when he has another writer and or artist draw Hellboy. He's still no, this is my copyright. You're just working for me. Just like guys work for Marvel DC and they work for hire. But he actually seems pretty cool that he was just like, nah, you co-own this with me. You created it with me, We have this nice splash page. We can already see the Sheridan influence. Every bit of sand is stippled into the beach here. Just really nice. You can even see it in the faces. That's Dave Sheridan. You can totally tell. But all the Freak Brothers look very on model. So maybe Shelton drew all the faces of the Freak Brothers? So the story starts off, Tales from the Tube. They still have a strip format, but they continue. See, they have a logo. First panel is the title. But it is really all one big story. So the Freak Brothers get kicked out of their apartment for not paying rent once again. They skip out on the landlady, taking as much stuff as they can carry. And they're in such a hurry that they just leave the cat, Freddy's cat, behind. And they don't even seem to care. They're just she'll get to keep our record collection. And she'll have a new kitty cat. But Fat Freddy's cat has other ideas. and we see him chasing the van, and he's on the roof. So he's they don't even know, but he's leaving with them. So they're heading down California, and of course lots of hijinks ensue. Fat Freddy's cat made his way into the van. He's hiding out. He's still not letting them know that he's there. They visit one of Franklin's rich rock star hippie friends, who's now totally like bougie, millionaire. And he gives them some stuff to snort. And they assume it's cocaine, but it's actually ketamine. And as they drive off, heading for the border, they're all tripping balls. I love this panel. This is obviously like Sheridan's influence. We see these like dragons chasing the van and these monsters. They're just wigging out on ketamine. That's another great panel too. Their friend is looking all demonic after giving them the ketamine. This trip's called El Mordido, the Bite. And this is how when you go across the border, you usually got to pay a little bribe. A lot of times you do, if they pick you out. I actually had this happen. I know about El Mordido. I was in a band, and we were heading down to play it was a charity benefit show in Mexico. I think it was for like an orphanage or something. All the money was going to go. So it was like a nice charity thing, And they picked us out, and they basically threatened to take all of our amps and guitars unless we gave them everything we had. I don't know, I think we had like $80 between us. And we had to, or they would have done that. Our amps were worth a lot more than that. So the Freak Brothers, they all pay the bribe, except for Phineas. He's being all political, and he's just like, I'm a U.S. citizen. This is wrong. So he has to stay. They shave his head, and he has to stay for like 24 hours. But he does leave. They do let him go. So Freddy is having a great time in Mexico, carousing in bars. And Phineas has had enough. Phineas is like, fuck this Mexico shit. I want to get back to America. And he takes the van. But he smokes some pot. So he's getting all paranoid. He's going to cross the border, and he's all paranoid on weed. Doesn't sound too pleasant. God, look how just great these... It's really fun cartooning in here and art. Meanwhile, in the Fat Freddy's cat strips, they are continuing the story too from the cat's point of view, because the cat has a few episodes back, he lost the guys. I think he went into the wrong van at a pit stop, and it was some other hippie van, so he doesn't know where the guys are. Yeah, they still kind of keep the strip format. It's still like a page is kind of like a little mini story, but it all continues and contributes to this big epic. They have of course, you got to have a joke about Montezuma's revenge. Here they call it the Chihuahua Cha-Cha. And they all go to this restaurant and end up shitting their guts in the desert. They make it to the beach and are having a great time. And this woman comes down. He's like, hey, just so you know, my dad is a retired U.S. general. And he's like a member of the American Foreign Legion. And he's heading over here right now with some National Guard to fuck you guys over. So they get in their van and take off. And they think that they can get sanctuary in a church. You know that old concept, like in medieval times? If you're on the run or on the lam, you can go to church and claim sanctuary. But when they try that, the priest is just all like, rats him out. He's like, Policia, Policia, ayúdame. So the cops are onto him, the federales, and they ditch the van and are climbing up this mountain, huffing and puffing away. And Don Long Juan shows up. And it's obviously like a, parody of that Carlos Castaneda character. And just like the character in the book, he's this mystic yogi type. He seems to have all these powers and all this arcane knowledge. And I guess he takes a liking to the boys because he totally helps them get away from the cops. And teaches them some really arcane shit, like how to change into animals. I kind of like this, how Phineas becomes a crow. It kind of looks like him. Franklin becomes a coyote with his big schnoz. And of course, Fat Freddy becomes a pig. So, Phineas is still trying to get out of the country. He finally got enough money to get an airline ticket. And this woman does the old switcheroo with him. She's like, "Oh, I'm a pregnant woman. I need to rest. Will you look after my handbag for a little while?" And he's like, "Sure." Of course, there's like 5 pounds of cocaine in there. And the federales bust him and throw him in Monte Gringo jail for 13 years. Freddie and Franklin see in the newspaper headline, and they can, see that it's Phineas in jail. They got busted. So they're like, "We got to get him out." Franklin takes the van and he goes to the U.S. Embassy. On the way there, the federales stop him. They realize, "Oh, you're friends with this huge drug dealer? Then you must be a drug dealer too. We're throwing you in jail." So they throw Franklin in jail luckily with Phineas in the same cell. This jail's really terrible. Like, they charge you for room and board. So if you want to eat, you got to pay up. Everything's like a bribe system. Even your sheets and your mattress, they charge you for. So Freddie, meanwhile, is a little worried about his friends, but mainly he's just getting drunk in this bar. In the jail, Phineas and Franklin got it pretty rough. They're put on hard labor. And they foolishly are thinking, "Oh, I'm sure Freddie's talking to the U.S. ambassador right now, taking care of the situation." But Freddie's just getting blotto. Oh, that Freddie. He's incorrigible. Finally, after like a day of drinking, he says, maybe I should go to the American Embassy. I should help out my buddies. They basically tell him, "We can't help you unless you have like $80,000 for a bribe. We can get him out." Of course, he doesn't have the money. But then Don Long Juan shows up to save the day once again. So he actually shows him he's got this counterfeit money things. So he makes a bunch of money so he can bribe anyone they need to. They dress up Freddie as a sheik, just using paper towels from the public restroom. And they go to Monte Gringo prison. Man, I really love this Shelton Sheridan combination. It's still really fun, humor comics, but just with this amazing, luscious ink over it. I kind of like this. It's almost like a family circus or something. They show the little, actually it's almost like Dungeons and Dragons. They show them going through all the corridors in the prison to get to the warden, and every person they meet, they got a bribe. But they realize they're counterfeit, and they're like, "Get those guys." Of course, Long Don Juan knows everything. So he knows about these secret tunnels under the prison and how to access them. Yeah, this underground scenes with how much work is drawing every little brick. Pretty crazy. I think Dave Sheridan must have been an amphetamine addict. Because it's insane the amount of work he puts in. So this kind of cool sequence. Apparently, there's layers of tunnels, and even the second one is like before the Aztecs. And they're like, "What are you talking about? There's no one here before the Aztecs." He's like, "You don't know shit, boyo." And so like the fourth layer down, they're on this like, some prehistorical civilization where everyone was small and elf-like. They see a skeleton. Then there was an age of giants. We see this giant ring. It gets pretty fantastical. They make their way out of the tunnels, out of a manhole cover, and they see their van, miraculously. That always seems to happen in the Freak Brothers. There's always amazing coincidences. So they get their van back. And they're driving through Mexico. And, they're just chilling in nature. And they see this hidden field of opium poppies with a landing strip next to it. And they're like, whoa, cool. But it's not so cool because all these military guys pull up. They see an American military plane landing, a bunch of them. So obviously this is like some U.S. operation. This is not, far from the realm of reality. During Vietnam, the U.S. Army was transporting lots of drugs. They were on the down low, obviously. So these soldiers capture the Freak Brothers, and they're going to execute them. And like I said, all these strips on the bottom are Fat Freddy's cat. And they're all him, while he's in Mexico. What he's been up to. So they're about to execute him, and of course, Long Don Juan intercedes once again. Drops a giant statue on top of the commandant. And then everyone else runs off in fear. And a few hours later, they're at the good old US of A border, and they made it back to America. And then they see, in the Fat Freddy's cat strip, they team up, or they reunite, I should say. And it's funny, Fat Freddy doesn't even recognize that it's his cat. He just thinks, oh, I'm going to need a new cat now. This one kind of looks like the cat I used to have. And Fat Freddy's cat says, I'll get you for that, Fat Freddy. So there was like one of the first long-form Freak Brothers epics. And it is so much fun. I got to say, I was rereading this last night. And, I was lying in bed reading it. And I was so into it that after a while, I had to pee really bad. But I didn't want to go. Like, every page I turned, I was like, I got to find out what happened. It really has that really good storytelling going on where you don't even want to stop. It's really just fun stuff. And kudos to Gilbert Shelton. Now we have Fat Freddy's cat in Chariot of the Globs. This is a very strange one. Phineas goes to this carnival, gets this weird doll, and they decide to put the speaking box in Fat Freddy's cat just as a gag. They put him in these overalls, and then they tuck this voice box in there. And then an ice cream cone with a hot dog lands on his head. And Fat Freddy's cat's freaking out. He's got this voice box saying Old MacDonald, singing Old MacDonald. He can't see. And meanwhile, we see these aliens in orbit around Earth. It turns out that they're not the ruling class, I guess kind of like the ruling class. And the officers all wear hats that look like an ice cream cone with a hot dog through it. So when they see Fat Freddy's cat looking like that, they're like, oh, he must be in, a higher level of being. And then Fat Freddy's cat is so scared he takes a shit. And when they analyze it, they're like, this is the most concentrated space fuel I've ever seen. Because these guys are out of gas. They need some fuel for their UFO. So now they're really just in awe of Fat Freddy's cat. They give him an amulet that gives him 3 wishes. And they give him this flying steed. And then he wastes all of his wishes. And when he gets home, he's really fat because he ate that giant steed. It was like a giant turkey to him. And gives the amulet to Freddy. Cute little story. Now this is odd. All the strips for the rest of the issue are Fat Freddy's cat and his friends, even though they're pretty much just Freak Brothers stories. So I don't know if Fat Freddy's cat was that popular at this point, that he was maybe still syndicating a few strips here and there under Fat Freddy's cat. Here we have a kind of self-referential strip where Phineas is reading the funnies and is like, I could do a better job. And he becomes a cartoonist and is, drawing comic pages. Man, some really nice Sheridan inks on this. We see Phineas and Freddy go mushroom hunting. We have some of the tales of the mice that live in the apartment. It's kind of interesting in these strips, and like the cover, you can see like this was a good looking glass, or time travel looking glass into what it was like back then. The early issues of the Freak Brothers, everything seems kind of fun and beautiful and all these fun hippie antics. But you can tell, like, the 70s were a kind of grimy time. Like inflation, people had to start going to work. The drugs weren't as good. Altamont had happened. All the assassinations of the late 60s. America was definitely not as, as optimistic. And, the whole hippie thing almost seemed passé. Even though these guys are still hippies. But it's they live in a grimier, dirtier world. It's not all, love beads and whatever, lava lamps. And it is interesting there. It seems like they're just as interested in cocaine now, which is also a thing of the 70s. People stopped just smoking pot and doing lots of coke and becoming turning into shitheads. More of the war with the roaches. These are some fun little gags. They go to Yellowstone Park and it says, don't feed the bears. But not only does Freddy feed the bears, he feeds them acid. And all the bears get all lovey-dovey. And one of them grabs Freddy and crushes him affectionately with love. This one's kind of a fun, crazy political one where the government is basically like, hey, we're going to take a page from, Wavy Gravy's book. And instead of dumping LSD into the water supply like they threatened during the Chicago convention, we're going to dump was it amphetamines? Yeah, they're going to dump amphetamines into the water supply of America, which will, cure everyone's depression. Because even in the 70s, everyone knew things weren't that good. Even though when you look back, they were amazing. But almost everyone who lived through the 70s, even though I was a little kid, you got the sense that, we missed a golden age. In the 70s, we were kind of stuck in a shitty decade. There was inflation and the economy was getting worse and worse. And, It just wasn't, as like Technicolor fun as the 60s. Some more zany antics. We have a couple strips of this character. I'm sorry, it even starts here. Governor Rich Pig. And he's basically just a typical horrible fat cat. I don't know if he continues. I guess we'll find out next episode. I kind of like it because Gilbert Shelton can inject some political humor and satire into the strip with that character. This one's kind of interesting because it has nothing to do with the Freak Brothers. It's just a one-page, almost like a short story, a little vignette. And we see the Freak Brothers at the beach, at the nude beach. This always seems to be a running gag in the Freak Brothers. That something happens, like a parrot or an actor, and they'll think it's a raid, and they have to dump all their drugs into the toilet. And of course, it's always a false alarm, and they're like, "Oh, no." So I wonder if these still were. There was a handful of syndicated strips he would do every year, like maybe just once every few months. It'd still, syndicate a strip to the hippie papers. Because these definitely seem, they got a logo. They're more episodic. But then again, maybe just Gilbert Shelton felt comfortable with that format. One page. Man, these ones that take place in the dark, basically, you really get to see Dave Sheridan's nutty shading. It's a lot of lines, a lot of hatch work. And we finally have one last strip. And it's about tumbleweeds. I like this back cover. It's, I don't know what this guy's name was. What, Rousseau, maybe? It's a parody of that famous painting. And, of course, but it's Fat Freddy and Fat Freddy's cat. It's pretty good, though. I imagine this is the Shelton Sheridan team. I can't see any signatures. But it's very cute. And it's really just those guys dreaming this. So there you have it. Brother, can you spare $1 for the fabulous Furry Freak Brothers? Actually, number 4 of the Freak Brothers. Hope you enjoyed it. We're about halfway through, almost halfway through. And basically about every week I'll keep bringing you these. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you liked the video. And hopefully I'll see you here next time at the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.